House will come back to order. The House will come back to order. Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell? Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Recognizing Flint Ridge Baptist Church on the grand occasion of its 150th anniversary, honoring the life, contributions, and memory of Asia Grant Hilliard III. Recognizing the Georgia Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives on the occasion of its 100th anniversary. Congratulating Mr. Parkash upon the grand occasion of his 70th birthday. Commending the School Social Workers Association of Georgia, Inc. for its work. Recognizing February 17, 2016 is Georgia Automatic Merchandising Council Day at the State Capitol. Commending Mr. William F. Harris. Commending the Professional Association of Georgia Educators and the Georgia Association of Educational Leaders, and recognizing February 16, 2016 as the Professional Association of Georgia Educators and the Georgia Association of Education Leaders Day at the State Capitol. Creating the House Study Committee on the Pharmacy Benefits Managers Process. Commending the Elabots Robotics Team of Gainesville Exploration Academy. Honoring the life and memory of Mr. Jack Harrington Elrod. Commending the Trunks and RoboPachyderms Robotics Team from the Gainesville Middle School. Recognizing and commending Lockheed Martin for delivering his 2,500th C-130 Hercules. Recognizing the Georgia Law Enforcement Certification Program and commending the commitment to excellence on the part of the employees of state-certified law enforcement agencies. Honoring the life and memory of Etzel Eddie Coy Durrance, Jr., and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. We are going back on to the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 764. House Bill 764.
House Bill 764 by Representative Powell of the 32nd and others, to be entitled an act to amend Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to motor vehicles so as to require drivers of motor vehicles to stop at crosswalks with pedestrian activated rectangular rapid flash beacons. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee, Chairman Powell, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House. I bring to you today the substitute for House Bill 764. And there's a few people I want to thank, and I'll get to that in a minute. But, you know, as we change and things are ever evolving, as we deal with the rules of the road and pedestrian safety, highway safety, and things like that. And this was brought to me last year, and actually this House passed this identical bill last year, but by the time it made it through the process, it looked like a Christmas tree when it went over to the Senate. There was motorcycle issues and, you know, gosh, you can name everything in the world, and it was all loaded up, and it got vetoed at the end of the session because of some of those other issues that deal with motorcycles and 10 other topics. what this bill does, ladies and gentlemen, in this new day and time, we have a lot of jurisdictions, and this was brought to us thanks to our legislative friends from Athens, Clark County. But some of them have started making crosswalks with these LED rapid flashing embedded lights in the pavement, and they have these triangular, rectangular rapid flash beacons. And believe it or not, none of these were covered under Georgia Code statute. So what we're doing, we're putting these under that statute so that it'll be a safety measure for pedestrians crossing the street. Also, it put in there that they can't be pressing these the crosswalk buttons without intentions of crossing. As I'd said earlier, this came to us from our friends Representative Fry and Spencer Fry and Regina Quick from Clark County, but it was perfected somewhat this year by some of the folks here in Atlanta, and then it was championed by Representative Kaiser, who has connections both in Clark County and also here in the city of Atlanta about some of these type of things. Now let me tell you the language in here for the description of the rectangular flashing beacons and the LED flashing rapid flash system, shutter flash and LED beacons. This language was perfected by the Georgia Department of Transportation. Without it, these may not be enforceable, and the pedestrian has a right-of-way. We've also added in there for pedestrian, thanks to some of the Atlanta folks and Ms. Kaiser, we've also added the bike riders also, so we certainly don't want to run over any bike riders unnecessarily. Mr. Speaker, I'll be more than glad to.
You don't have any questions.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be awful grateful for your kind consideration. I'll step down before I have to make another comment about bike riders.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 764 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 764. The ayes are 169, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 883. House Bill 883.
House Bill 883 by Representative Taylor, the 173rd, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 37 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to insurers, rehabilitation, and liquidation, so as to change certain provisions relating to insurers, rehabilitation, and liquidation. This bill having been referred to Committee on Insurance, that committee recommends the same do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Darlene Taylor to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Good afternoon. I'm very happy this afternoon to bring you House Bill 883. House Bill 883 updates provisions of the Insurance Rehabilitation and Liquidation in accordance with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. This accreditation are standards and changes how claims procedures for ancillary receivership is handled in our state. 883 is an NCIA accreditation bill that allows Georgia's Department of Insurance to maintain NAIC accreditation. Georgia is one of the very beginning states that belonged and has maintained this accreditation since the 1990s. As I spoke this morning, this is another part of the modernization of our Department of Insurance. If there are no questions, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for your favorable consideration of the bill.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 883? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 883 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines.
They call me Stretch.
Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 883. The ayes are 166, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. For what purpose does Chairman England rise?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House amend the Senate substitute to House Bill 750 and agree to it.
So your motion is that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 750 as amended by the House. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 750 by Representative England and others to amend an act making and providing appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2016, known as the General Appropriations Act.
Chairman England, having moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 750 as amended by this House, the chair now recognizes Chairman England to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry about that. I wasn't expecting you to call on me at that particular second, but you understood what I was trying to get to. Ladies and gentlemen, bring to you this afternoon the basically the agreement on the amended budget, and you've got it on your desk. It's been printed and laying there since yesterday afternoon. And if you would just walk with me through a few items. Basically, as it left here, there are not a whole lot of changes that the Senate made. There were a few changes that we have agreed to there, and some compromise positions as well, and a couple of new items since it originally left here that some of you have been asking me a few questions about, and I hope to give you some explanations here this afternoon. So if you will, turn to your first page of the little tracking document you have in front of you, which is actually is the amendment under Section 5, and we're going by the Senate basically item numbers, so it's a little bit different than the House. The sections should be about the same, but the item numbers are going to be a little bit different than the original House version. But under Court of Appeals, we came to an agreement there to go with one of the central staff attorney positions as the agreement position there. Under Section 6, Judicial Counsel, again going back to something we had taken as the House position on reducing personal services to the actual projected expenditures. I wound up with an agreement there. Under Section 9, 27.1, again an actual number, truing up there. 28.1 on Superior Court judges, looking at those dealing with accountability courts. Funding is actually for 6, not 7 of those accountability courts. 6 of those have been certified. 1 is currently operating under a waiver. And as a policy matter, we felt that in order to receive the funding, it should be that those are certified courts and not those operating under waivers. 29.3, going back to the House position on the per diem rate mileage for the Supreme Court justices. 42.1, a change brought in conference committee dealing with a shortage on Georgia Aviation Authority funds. They're a little bit short of reaching the end of the runway, so they need a little bit of help to get there. But thank you. I'll be performing at Pencil Factory tonight at 7 o'clock. Under 83.2, under Section 16, dealing with Greta, just capturing some fuel savings. As you've noticed, gasoline and diesel fuel both have come down considerably over the last year. And so a $200,000 reduction there to recognize those savings. Section 17 under DCH, again, a true up of the actual expected expenditures there. And on 91.1, also the same thing. Under Section 95-100 and 96-100, you'll see some moves there, and 95.1 and 96.2 are actually concurrent moves, a cut in one program area going as an add in another program area. And then on 96.1, just a reduction in funds for contract savings there. And then there was also a tie between 95.2 and 96.3, and we decided not to do that in the amended. Now under 97-100 and 98-100, that is one of those kind of last minute things. As y'all know, this is the final spending plan for the state going into the end of the fiscal year. And from time to time, we do receive judgments for different court cases, different things, different litigation going on with the state. And we'd had some ongoing litigation with CMS, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services. And so in the appeals court about a week and a half ago, we won a judgment in our favor for about $70 million. And in keeping with it coming from medical usage, coming from CMS, as y'all know, Mercer and Morehouse have a unique relationship with the state of Georgia in providing physicians to go into rural and underserved areas across this state. Those have been long-term partnerships, and Chairman Smyrie brought me the year. I'd been wondering what the year was, but his recollection was with Morehouse, it goes back to 1981, and Mercer somewhere about that same time frame that relationship has been in place. They have a unique ability to serve those physicians looking to go into those areas. It is a unique working relationship with the state, as both of those are private institutions, but we have that ongoing relationship with them as well. And so you'll see a $35 million one-time payment to Mercer and a $35 million one-time payment to Morehouse. And in talking with those schools and understanding a lot of the background on that, Morehouse uses some additional state funds from time to time for some additional drawdowns and matches on federal funding. They'll be able to use some of this money for that, but they're looking at a loan repayment program for students going to serve rural and underserved areas, that there'll be service counselable loans. And that is also what Mercer is going to be doing. They're going to be using all of that fund, setting it up as a semi-endowment to allow those students to go into rural and underserved areas, and after a period of time, their loans would be forgiven for the medical school. As you and I all know in this building, that we're having a crisis in finding enough doctors to serve our state, especially in rural areas, especially with students coming out with high debt loads. So this will be something that will make that much easier. I kind of liken it to teaching a man, or giving a man a fish he eats for a day, teach a man to fish he eats for a lifetime, and that's kind of what we're doing here. We could have done something different with the money that would have been a one-time hit that would have had no legacy to it, but we've chosen here to do something that will have a long-term impacting legacy throughout the state in both of these schools. Morehouse also is working with a couple of other our state institutions in the state, Fort Valley State and Albany State, on some collaborative partnerships there, and some of this funding will help them in that partnership venture as well. Moving on over to Section 23, 136, 100, some increased funds for some music and tourism promotion in our state. This is the year of song, or the year of music, and the Senate felt that it was worthy of promotion. Under Section 27, 173.1, later information brought us that there was about a $550,000 cut there that we could do and not inhibit or impair any of the functions of that particular office. Section 28, as this budget left the House, we had put $1.4 million in for relocation of 4 top priority DFACS offices across the state, needing to expand for the new workload, new caseworkers that are going in, plus the increased workload they're seeing. So we've just split it between 2 programs to where they're actually needed there, and that's what you're seeing there. Going on to Section 31, the Senate had a different idea on both of those items. We've gone back to the House position there. In pardons and paroles, just another reduction for actual expenditures on line 237.2, and then on 239.1, projected expenditures again, and then a reduction for interagency transfers on 239.2. And on the last page, Section 37, the top 2 items were items that were brought to us by the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, just recognizing a program change, statement change, and so we're just signing off on those. 236-100 under Section 39, the Department of Public Safety, a small reduction in the Firefighter Standards and Training Council. They do have some needs that we're addressing in the 17 budget, but again, as we're trying to narrow things down and finish up this budget in good shape, they were not going to be able to expend those funds this year, so we're making that reduction there. Under 283.1, Section 41 under Public Service Special Funding Initiatives, it came to us again at the very last minute of an economic development prospect that was looking at the Augusta area in a partnership with Augusta University. So a $5 million ad. And I should note that if you'll look at the front page, you'll see the general fund revenue estimate has been increased, and that was brought to us by the governor in a letter to recognize the $70 million plus and $5 additional million for this transaction here. 286-100 dealing with teaching. The Cordele Center for Darton State down in Cordele. An internal move there, just asking regents to use internal funds to stand that center up and get it into operation. Representative Harden has been very instrumental in making sure that happens, so I want to give him a shout out here. Then moving on to Veteran Services, Section 48. Really going back to a neutral position on 4 of those items, but if you look at 346.5, just a slight increase in funds to get them through to the end of the year. And last but not least, 352.2 under General Obligation Debt Sinking Fund. Realize we've got a slight shortage in pre-funding on debt service in the 17 budget, and so as we were balancing, we were able to accumulate some funds to push forward into the debt service for the 17 budget. And so that's $773,361 we'll be pushing forward into the 17 for debt service there. That's pretty much everything that has happened or changed since it left here. Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
You don't appear to have any questions.
That's a good thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask for your favorable consideration for the House amendment to the Senate sub for HB 750.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment to the Senate substitute to House Bill 750? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 750 as amended by this House, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 169, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 750 as amended by this House. For what purpose does the chairman of the Appropriations Committee rise? State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move for immediate transmittal of House Bill 750, the Senate sub, as amended by the House to the Senate.
The chairman of the House Appropriations Committee has moved that House Bill the Senate substitute to House Bill 750 as amended by this House be immediately transmitted to the Senate. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is on its way across the hall. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 561. House Bill 561.
House Bill 561 by Representative Wilkinson, the 52nd, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 3 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to state symbols, so as to designate the adoptable dog as the official state dog. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Government Affairs, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Mr. Chairman, as I was having my coffee this morning, I had the news on, and I actually saw the former Secretary of State of our country barking. I think it's appropriate that we take this bill up today. The chair recognizes the chair of the House Ethics Committee, Chairman Wilkinson, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and fellow members of the House, I bring to you House Bill 561, which has become known as the Adoptable Dog Act. Last week, we celebrated the 283rd anniversary of the founding of the colony of Georgia. Under General James Oglethorpe and the other trustees of the colony, Georgia was to be a place where the worthy poor and those seeking religious freedom would be given a second chance at life, a second chance at life. The colony's motto was not for self, but for others. What a noble heritage that we share with those who founded this great state that we are privileged to live in today. Now, many of us, particularly political junkies, wake up each morning to read my friend Todd Ream's online Georgia Pundit. Regular readers know that Todd devotes the first section of his newsletter to highlighting dogs across our state that are in desperate need of adoption. Todd also makes pleas for monetary support for shelters, pounds, and rescue groups. I believe these efforts by Todd are in keeping with the spirit of the founding of the colony of Georgia. Last year, I worked with Todd and many animal rescue groups to find a way to drive more people to adopt homeless animals and to become responsible pet owners. And that is when I came up with the idea of making any adoptable dog the official dog of the state of Georgia. I hope you agree that this symbol fits with the Colony of Georgia's trustees' goals of giving second chances. And it should remind everyone of why our state was created to begin with. Plus, animals can be such a major, positive, loving part of anyone's life. This bill has been in the public domain for almost a year now. We have heard back from so many shelters, pounds, and rescue groups who have told us that it has indeed brought more people in to look at adopting rescue dogs and cats. We have heard the same from other states, and 2 legislators are considering copying this bill in their respective states. I have received only 2 negative messages from Georgians about this bill. Think about it, 11 months and only 2 negative messages. And I have responded and stated, as I will today, this is not a frivolous bill. I just share with you the specialness animals can play in one's life. But I want to get to the financial side. We are talking millions of dollars here that your local governments are having to allocate each year to house hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of homeless animals. I have seen reports that estimate that in Georgia we may be taking in up to 500,000 stray animals a year. Their costs per day in shelters and pounds range from $15 to $40. Multiply those numbers against X number of days in shelter by 500,000 animals and other costs associated. Ladies and gentlemen, you're talking millions of dollars that this is costing our state. So this is not frivolous legislation. It is legislation that raises awareness of the need to rescue animals, the joy they can bring to Georgians, and the money that can be saved at the local level when they are adopted. Mr. Speaker, I, of course, will be willing to take questions, but would like to go ahead and answer 2 of them right now. First, this legislation only makes a simple change in Georgia code, so a physical note is not required. And the second answer, yes, all dogs do go to heaven, but let's help them while we can right now as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do you yield for questions?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Atwood to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen, yield.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that you're a University of Georgia graduate?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that the one animal I love most in my life is the granddaughter of 2 Uggas ago, and her name is Georgia?
The gentleman is correct, and of course I've been very fortunate to get to know Georgia. I still don't understand why she has been trained to block your liquor cabinet, but well done.
Well, she has.
Oh, believe me, I know.
But isn't it true you've worked long and hard on me to vote for this bill, and it's a good bill?
Thank you.
You have another question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes, does this have anything to do with insects? Representative Brockway, to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Did gentlemen yield?
Yes, I do.
This is a great bill, and as you remember, it came up in committee and in subcommittee. Would you accept a friendly amendment to also allow the state winged insect to become the yellow jacket?
I would have to think long and hard about that. I believe the...
it would not be germane.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, you have ridden to the rescue again. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is something very special, and our goal, and my co-sponsors, our goal is to have more animals saved, more families enriched with having animals in their lives, and to save money. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
Gentleman has yielded the will. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 561 will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 561. The ayes are 172, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 592. House Bill 592.
House Bill 592 by Representative Harrell, the 106th and others, to be titled an act to amend Chapter 15 and Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to professional engineers and land surveyors, so as to provide for the profession or of professional structural engineers. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Regulated Industries, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Harrell to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I have House Bill 592 to present to you this afternoon. Let me start by sharing with you a few things that this bill does not do. It creates no new boards, no new testing requirements, no new continuing education requirements. Every engineer in the state of Georgia is required to be licensed today. What 592 does is those engineers practicing in the area of structural engineering, they take a two-day, 16-hour exam today. Those engineers would then receive an SE after their name. So they would be professional engineer, PE, comma, SE, structural engineer. That's important primarily from a competitive basis. There's about 18, 19 states that already have this designation. So what we've seen in some cases, when Georgia engineers are competing for out-of-state work, even though that Georgia engineer may have more years of experience, because they're not designated as a structural engineer, sometimes those evaluating the bid package are inadvertently disqualifying more seasoned engineers because of that. 7 other states are in the process of getting this designation of structural engineering, so it's important as we continue to move in that direction in the engineering field. With regard to all those engineers that do not practice in the structural field, those engineers now would be required, as it is current law, to take a one-day, 8-hour exam. So it puts no additional burden on all the engineers practicing in all other disciplines of engineering in Georgia. So it would have the effect of reducing the burden on those engineers. I put a one-page answer sheet on your desk this morning. If you had a chance to review that, it would answer some of the additional questions you may have. But again, it's brought on behalf of the engineering industry. It does not increase any burden, any regulatory, any administration, any cost, or any additional CE. Appends SE to the end of the title of those practicing structural engineering. Mr. Speaker, I'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
You do not have any questions. I'm sorry, you do have a question.
Yes, sir. I'd be glad to
yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Carl Rogers to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the gentleman in the well, will you yield?
Let me get my bill in front of me.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
On lines 158 through 164, can you explain to me the intent of this language?
That's right. When an engineer, first of all, for example, homes would not be considered, a single-family home is not going to be considered a structure, or would not require a SE designation. So at the local, county, and governing authority, what they're doing is they're trying to record the engineer of record for the various structures. So I believe that that's why they're asking for us to indicate the name of that engineer of record, whether it be a professional engineer or a structural engineer.
Okay, will you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Oh, isn't it true, though, a city or county can require either or the engineers, if they, what I'm trying to say, can't they, or isn't it possible they could require a structural engineer rather than a professional engineer? Isn't that true?
I think it would depend on I don't think a local government is going to require a structural engineer if the project is not structural in nature. So, for example, you're not going to require a structural engineer to design a single-family home or to design a simple retaining wall. That would not be a requirement of the local government to do that. But if you're doing a life safety, a public safety building, aviation, a hospital, a 30-story high-rise building, and something of that nature, then obviously you want the engineer that designs and steals those plans to be someone that has that type of expertise.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes to your left Representative Dukes for a question.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Currently, for all professional engineers, is it not true that they do not need this designation in order to qualify to design buildings of this nature?
Yes, sir, Representative. All engineers in Georgia today pass an exam and are licensed as professional engineers. So let's suggest that you've been practicing engineering in Georgia for a number of years and have been designing buildings that would be considered structural. Engineers that have done that, and I should have mentioned this earlier, according to this bill, House Bill 592, would simply send in an affidavit that says, I've been practicing in this area for a number of years in Georgia, and those engineers would be grandfathered in. And you could then add the SE designation behind your existing professional engineer designation. So it will not adversely affect those engineers currently practicing and have been practicing for years in Georgia.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes to your right Representative Terry Rogers for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Representative Harrell, is it not true that the main purpose of this bill is a reciprocity sort of aspect? When we were talking about regulated industries, what it does is levels the playing field in other states for our engineers.
That's right. Many states have adopted this designation and more are in the process.
Great. So it's an opportunity for our engineers to bid competitively on more jobs.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, with that, I'll yield the well. I will ask for your favorable consideration on House Bill 592.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 592 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 592. The ayes are 169, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 588.
House Bill 588 by Representative Clark of the 101st and others, being entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 13, and Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the regulation of controlled substances, so as to change provisions relating to possession of substances containing ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, and phenylpropylamine, and restrictions on sales of products. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Valerie Clark to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, what an appropriate day to have a bill for pharmacies, being on Pharmacy Day. House Bill 588 calls for an across-the-board electronic logging system to block the illegal sale of pseudoephedrine. Today, when you go to a Walgreens, a CVS, or a big box store that's a pharmacy, and you purchase cold or allergy medication such as Claritin D or Allegra D, it's behind the counter because if it's purchased in large quantities, it can be used to make methamphetamine. It's not a prescription drug, but it's behind the counter because you can use it for illegal purposes. You show your photo ID and you get information, and it's entered into an electronic system, and this electronic system blocks a person from traveling from store to store to purchase great amounts to make meth. The problem isn't going away. In the last 8 years, there has been a 500% increase in the amount of meth that has been seized. In Lilburn, fairly recently, a mother was making meth in her own home, and it exploded and killed her 3 children. Ask a dentist, what's a new problem in dentistry? And he may answer, or she may answer, meth. When you go to a grocery store pharmacy, or you go to an independent pharmacist, you use a paper log instead of an electronic log, and you sign your name, put in the very same information on this paper log. Takes a long time, and if a pharmacist suspects someone is going from pharmacy to pharmacy, again to make meth, they have to write an email to their colleagues, and there's no electronic system for them because of cost. If you look at your handout that's on your desk, you'll see that all the states around Georgia already have this electronic system. Georgia is the donut hole, and folks are coming to Georgia to purchase meth. One of our own pharmacists said if someone comes from Tennessee and they're asking to purchase Claritin D, they're suspect immediately because they're wondering if it's for that illegal purpose. The crux of the bill is in line 86, calling for that electronic system. It's free of charge. It's free of all fees, which has been asked for by our independent pharmacists. And it asks for the very same information, no more information. You can have the same amount that's already given to you. And also it states that records shall not be disclosed. Again, it's new that it's an electronic system. The bill is supported by our Attorney General, the Sheriff's Association, our local police departments, our Drugs and Narcotics Agency, our grocery store and independent pharmacists, and the Medical Association of Georgia. So far, 32 states have this real-time stop sale technology. It produces no new burdens to our consumers. It imposes no new costs to our healthcare system. It's much easier to use by our pharmacists, and it provides one more tool against meth production and abuse. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask for your favorable consideration of House Bill 588, and Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ladies and
Lady
gentlemen.
has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 588 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 588. The ayes are 151, the nays are 19. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 884. House Bill 884.
House Bill 884 by Representative Taylor, the 173rd, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 56, entitled 33, the official code of Georgia, annotated, relating to risk-based capital levels. so as to revise the definition of company action level event to include a health organization with certain total adjusted capital levels. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Insurance. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Darlene Taylor to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I appreciate this opportunity to bring you one last bill, and I wasn't just showing off because I can walk today. These are important bills, and I appreciate this opportunity. This afternoon, I'm bringing you House Bill 884. This is a final bill for today, and it's part of that modernization of the insurance department. This bill is needed to keep Georgia in compliance with the NAIC. 884 revises the definition of company action level events to include health organizations with certain total adjusted capital levels and applies risk-based capital computations to a company's action level. And it involves health organizations and primary health insurers and health plans. 884 is an NAIC accreditation bill that allows Georgia's Department of Insurance to maintain our NAIC accreditation. Georgia has maintained this accreditations since the 1990s. And if there are no questions, I would appreciate your favorable consideration of this bill.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 884 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 884. The ayes are 170, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 34. House Bill 34.
House Bill 34 by Representative Dungeon and the 25th and others to be titled an act to amend Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to health so as to enact the Georgia Right to Try Act to provide for investigational drugs, biological products, and devices for patients with advanced illnesses. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Dungeon to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. It's my privilege today to bring to you the Georgia Right to Try Act, House Bill 34. Similar legislation to this is passed in 24 states, and it's very simple what it does. It allows terminally ill patients to have access to experimental drugs or therapies that have been approved by the FDA for safety but have not passed the long, what are called efficacy, or whether the drug is finally approved. That process takes 8 to 10 years, and if you're terminally ill, you don't have 8 to 10 years to wait on that long and lengthy FDA process. So again, if the drug has gone through the first part, which is safety, it will be available. This is 100% voluntary. No one is forced to do anything. This only applies if the patient, the doctor, the drug, or the treatment manufacturer agree, and the hospital, everybody agrees. No one is forced to pay for anything. No insurance company is forced to pay for anything. Everybody has to be in agreement. We also worked on the indemnity language to make sure that the doctor is not going to get sued if he allows this experimental treatment, because by definition, it's a high-risk scenario with a terminally ill patient and an unproven therapy. And we worked out language between the doctors and the attorneys. So what this will do, it will continue to apply some pressure to the FDA. They've already modernized their end-of-life procedures for exceptions based on a lot of other states doing this, and it will provide some options for some other people here, hopefully in Georgia. Madam Chair pointed out as we went through committee, it's true, this is not a panacea where all of a sudden anybody can do anything who's having a terminally ill situation, but there are some targeted situations where it will help. In Texas right now, there's a doctor who's got a new cancer drug that's going through trials right now. Those trials are full, but he's able to use the Texas version of this law in order to allow some other patients access to potentially life-saving therapy. So, Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, I think this is a great piece of legislation. I ask for your favorable consideration and be glad to answer any questions.
You have a couple of questions. Do you care to yield?
Yes, sir, I'll yield.
Chair recognizes to your right Representative Spencer for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, certainly.
Isn't it true that the compassionate waiver in the FDA process for experimental drugs is not so compassionate at all?
It certainly has not been for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes to your right Representative Bruce for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, I do.
While I think the principle is good, I have a question though.
Yes.
Sometimes people get overzealous in saying what a product will or won't do. And does your bill take into consideration what happens in an instance where someone was misrepresented? They agreed to do it, but they were misrepresented about the facts.
Yeah, basically there's a very strong disclosure that has to be made to the patient from the provider saying all the possible adverse effects, and a disclaimer saying this has not been proven, and the fact that it has not been proven through the whole trial. So as much as possible, we're going to try to make the patient aware of the fact that this is a very, very high risk situation.
You have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will and ask for your favorable consideration.
Gentleman has yielded the will. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 34 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 34. The ayes are 173, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. What purpose does Chairman Coomer rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that House Bill 973 be moved from the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security to the Committee on Transportation. Both chairmen agree to the motion.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 973 by Representative Coomer, the 14th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to identification and regulation of motor vehicles so as to provide for the regulation of the Department of Public Safety of towing service providers.
On the motion of the chairman that House Bill 973 be withdrawn from the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee and moved to the Transportation Committee, is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. What purpose does Representative Watson rise?
Make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that the rules of the House be temporarily suspended so that this bill may be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Clerk will read the caption.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Watson of the 172nd and others to amend Chapter 4 of Title 2 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Georgia Seed Development Commission so as to change certain provisions relating to the Georgia Seed Development Commission and its membership.
On the gentleman's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee, is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. We have a couple of birthdays today, and then the chair also wanted to make you aware, if you're not already, that one of our members lost her father over the weekend, Representative Karen Bennett, and I hope you will keep her and her family in your prayers as she goes through this difficult time. We want to wish a happy birthday today to Representative Tom Kirby. Representative Kirby. Also celebrating a birthday today is Representative Sheila Jones, who gets younger every year. We will be doing page photographs at the rostrum immediately upon adjournment. Chair recognizes for an announcement the chairman of the House Insurance Committee, Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Insurance Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, room 606, LOB. We'll have two bills, House Bill 784 and House Bill 965. Thank you, sir.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, Chairman Cooper, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Health and Human Services Committee, let's meet at 2:30. It's almost 2:15, so I'll see you at 2:30 at 606 in the CLOB. And thank you for your patience.
Chair recognizes the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, Chairman England, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just letting everybody know that in the morning, starting at 7:15, the Higher Ed Subcommittee of Appropriations will be meeting in room 341, and all the other subcommittees will be meeting in 15-minute increments after that. So please be there. On Thursday morning, full committee of appropriations will be meeting at 7:30 in room 341 here in the Capitol. So we've got a lot of work yet to do. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Randy Nix for an announcement. Chairman Nix.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Academic Support Subcommittee of the Education Committee will meet immediately upon adjournment in 515 CLOB. We were scheduled to meet at 2, but we're going to meet immediately beyond adjournment, 515 CLOB.
Chair recognizes the Chairman of the Transportation Committee, Chairman Coomer, for an announcement.
Transportation Committee will meet upon adjournment in room 406 in the CLOB to discuss truck weights, everybody's favorite topic.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Motor Vehicles Committee, Chairman Rice, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow morning at 7:15, I know the appropriations subcommittees are meeting. There's also the Legislative Fellowship meeting in 125 tomorrow morning. For those of you who are not on appropriations, for those of you who are on appropriations, find a time to stop by.
Chair recognizes Chairman Amy Carter for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to remind everyone tomorrow is Career Technical Student Organization Day. We will have peach ice cream from 11 to 2 on the South Steps. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Setzler Subcommittee of Non-Civil Judiciary will meet at 3 p.m. today as scheduled, 3 p.m., but it's in room 506 of the Legislative Office Building. It's HB 779 and HB 905. 3 p.m., room 506.
Chair recognizes Chairman Pruitt for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Industry and Labor, the Pruitt Subcommittee will meet today at 3 o'clock and 4:15 at the CLOB. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Banks and Banking Committee, Chairman Morris, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Immediately upon adjournment, the Banks and Banking Committee will be meeting in room 341 down the hall. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Tanner for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Motor Vehicles Tag and Title Subcommittee will meet directly on adjournment, room 506 CLOB. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Kaiser for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think most of you would want to hear this. I know everyone in this body knows Boyd Pettit, one of our favorites out in the hallway.
Ladies, suspend. This is a important announcement.
Thank you, Mr.
I know that
Speaker.
many members would want to hear it. If you don't care to hear it, then please excuse yourself out into the anteroom. The lady may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many of you know Boyd Pettit, one of our favorite folks out in the hall with Georgia Link, lost his wife over the holiday season on December 14th. It was a beautiful ceremony I was able to attend in Cartersville at her home church. So we have a resolution that it honors the life of her. I know particularly the members of the Women Caucus would like to be on this resolution, and I thank everyone who's signed it so far. But I will leave it at my desk if you'd like to sign it, and I'll take it over to the clerk's office later today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Brockway for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The State Government Subcommittee of Governmental Affairs will meet in room 515 at 3 o'clock. Immediately following that at 4 o'clock, the Elections Subcommittee of Governmental Affairs will meet in room 515. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Harrell for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Ways and Means Ad Valorem Tax Subcommittee will meet upon adjournment in room 133, and then each of the other Ways and Means subcommittees will follow upon adjournment of the previous subcommittee. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Al Williams for an announcement.
The policy committee, it was scheduled to meet at 4 o'clock, is canceled. It will be rescheduled for tomorrow. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Welch for an announcement.
Public Safety Subcommittee on Appropriations will meet at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning to pass out our recommendations on the 2017 budget. That's in 341. Thank you.
That completes our announcements. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand in recess until 4 p.m. today, at which time we will adjourn until tomorrow morning, Wednesday, February the 17th, 2016 at 10 a.m.
Majority Leader has moved that this House be in recess until 4 o'clock p.m. today, at which time we will be adjourned until Wednesday, February 17 at 10 o'clock a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. This House will be in recess until 4 o'clock p.m., whereupon we will be adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.